When I first started, it seemed like guys were all about team, 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 and now it's a little bit more of me, me, me.
Well, Adam, excited to talk about the NFL with you. I know this season, and you know that it's been a crazy football year. It's been a mixed bag for kickers this year, especially extreme highs, extreme lows. So I want to start with the highs. It seems like kickers are making longer field goals than ever, and I'm curious why you think that is. Do you think it's all of a sudden, coaching, the coaching staff has more faith in them? Do you feel like they're training differently? Because these 50, 60-yard field goals, it looks like it's nothing to them.
No, I think you're right. I think it's everything. I believe that, they always talk about the coaches and their, what do the analytics say and stuff, right? So I think a lot of coaches are deciding to go for it with its 4th and 3, 4th and 4, no matter where they are on the field. So, when they get inside the red zone, there's not a lot of short field goals anymore. Teams are wanting to punch it into the end zone or at least take the risk of trying to do that. So it really looks like, the field goals are all these 40 to, like you said, 40 to 60-yard field goals is kind of the norm now. And kickers are just getting really, really good, their accuracy and their leg strength and stuff. I know when I played, a mid 50-yard field goal was like you had to really consider it. And what's the situation? What's the down and distance? Because you're giving up a lot of field position if you don't make it. Team play now, 55 is routine. They just send them out there no matter what. I even watched it during some of the playoffs and some of the windy, rainy conditions, the snowy conditions. And I'm like, 55 in a dome is one thing. 55 and 3-mile-an-hour winds in the snow is a tall task to try to do. So, yeah, for sure. I think the philosophy's definitely changed, and it's becoming a little more difficult with the kickers. And I think you're seeing that, that a lot of guys are making them and having big days. And then ultimately there's some that are being missed that are changing the outcome of the game too. So, I like the aggressiveness by the coaches, but on the other side, I guess I go way back to when I first started playing in the late 90s. And I'm like, yeah, take those 3 points, take but philosophies have changed. And what do I know?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm glad you mentioned it because we're seeing guys, who've gone their whole careers and they've been locked in. They're a lock for getting it. But I want you to talk a little bit about the mental aspect of being a kicker and how if things can go very wrong very quickly. And have you experienced a stretch like that when you were a kicker where you were just like, I have got to get through this mental block? Did you experience that?
I think every kicker goes through some sort of questioning themselves at some point. There's times where you're kicking really well and you feel like you can never miss, right? And then there's other times you kick a ball and you thought you hit it well, but it was ugly and didn't go, and you go, what the heck? So then you start thinking about it. And then it's one of those things that you hope if you miss one, you get another opportunity right away to kind of get that monkey off your back and kind of get focused back in. But it can linger a little bit if you let it. And the worst thing is when you miss the last kick of the game, but you still win, you have 7 days to think about it. Or God forbid you miss it at the end of and your team loses, you have to spend the next 6 months thinking about it. So, I think the biggest challenge for kickers, because I think they're all really good and they're all physically talented and they all can do it, kind of between the ears. If you can stay locked in and if you can in really, even if something bad happens, you have to have short memory. If you go 5 for 5, you still have to have short memory. You still have to go out there the next time and rezone in and make sure that you're doing everything right to make sure that next one goes. So yeah, the mental side of it and the psychological side of it plays a big role, especially when you get to the playoffs. It's every point, every kick, every play is of utmost importance.
I like that. I was going to ask you, what is the fix for that? But I feel like you said it perfectly. Have a short memory and stick to what you know.
Rely on your technique and your skill. And, trust the process of what you've done for all these years. And usually it works out all right.
I like that. Well, Adam, you hold, I feel like, the coolest record in the NFL, all-time leading scorer with over 2,600 points. I know you've hung up your cleats, but who do you think could break your record if someone were to?
Well, I never thought I would reach that milestone. I know when I played against Morton Anderson and he had 2,500 and some points, and I was probably 5 years in the league, 6 years in the league, and I looked at him as a god and was like, hey, Mr. Morton, very nice to meet you. Nobody's ever record, you're the man kind of thing. And then I guess, it's really about longevity and who can stay healthy and really, everybody just talks about Justin Tucker or, some of the guys that are 10-year guys. I mean, it took me 24 years to get there. And toward the end of my career, your body starts to break down a little bit when you're in your upper 40s, I guess. So it's a physical thing and it's a psychological thing. If a guy can stay, like the want, the drive, and the determination to keep your body healthy, to do all the little things to be able to stay on a field, I think that's the guy that ends up, getting to 2,000 plus points. And I know when I hit about 2,100 points, I was like, Morton's record is out there. It's still a few years away, but we'll see if we can go get it, right? And at that point, it's kind of an ups and downs thing. You're dealing with a little bit of injury here or there or whatever, and it's a psychological thing too, where you have to really want to try to continue to go when you're at that age going, and there's life out there, and I'm not experiencing all the fun stuff on the outside because I'm really concerned about trying to keep my body ready and keep on playing. So
Speaking on the Patriots here, just for a minute, they announced Mike Vrabel, your former teammate in New England, will be their new head coach. So what were your initial thoughts when you heard about this?
Well, two things. I thought, the fact that they let Gerard Mayo go after a year kind of surprised me. It's pretty difficult to turn an organization around in one season. I mean, there's always issues. I mean, you can load your team with whatever you can, draft wise and free agency wise, but I feel like it takes a few years to turn an organization around and get your guys that you want in there and your draft choices to make a difference. But in saying that, Mike Vrabel, hell of a competitor, great teammate, great coach. Like, he's going to turn that organization around. I know him personally. He's a hard-nosed guy that's gonna get those guys going. So I really feel like that's a great swing in the Patriots organization. I think it, hopefully it only takes him a year, but sometimes, you got to building an organization takes a little while, but he's the right man for the job. He's a damn good coach.
Last couple questions here for you. So you played alongside some of the most iconic players, many of whom are now mentoring or coaching. How do you think modern NFL players differ in terms of mindset, preparation, even leadership compared to the players that you played or you learned from when you first entered the league? Have you noticed any difference?
I think there's been a lot of different changes. I think social media is probably the number one thing that has maybe even changed players and guys, because now all of a sudden, unfortunately, it's about how many followers do I have? How do I get my message to these guys? And so for me, when I first started, it seemed like guys were all about team, and now it's a little bit more of me. Don't get me wrong, guys are very concerned about winning games and trying to be a great teammate and stuff. But I think that's one of the major changes that I've seen throughout the last little while. I do feel like talent continues to get better. I mean, you just look at, athletes now and you're like, my God, they're big, strong, fast. It just athleticism is crazy. But, leadership is one of those things that I felt like when I first started and throughout my career, I look across the league and I look at the Ray Lewises and the Peyton Mannings and the Tom Brady's, very, very unselfish guys that were only about how to not only do I play well, how do I help the guys around me to become the best players that they can? Because, I mean, if you win a championship, right? If you win a Super Bowl, it's a team effort, and your weakest link is going to hurt you and exploit you. So how do you make your weakest link as good as everybody else, right? And that's kind of by holding each other accountable, by being a great leader, and that's not necessarily a rah-rah thing. It's about doing everything right in the meeting rooms, the weight rooms, the locker room, on the field, off the field, and lead by example. And I think that's one of the things that I don't know. I won't necessarily say it's changed, but there are definitely differences from a decade ago or back in the golden days of Jerry Rice in Montana and some of those guys. It wasn't about how many fantasy football points you get or how do you relate it to whatever. So I think that's kind of probably the major difference. But football is thriving. Football has never been more popular. You know, obviously the endorsements and all that stuff are great. You see the salary cap going up. So football is alive and healthy and moving in the right direction. I mean, all the games overseas and South America and in Europe and all that stuff. It's awesome. It's fun as a fan to sit back and watch how it evolved now, for sure.
Hey, sports fans, if you want to see more conversations with athletes and stars, check out these videos right here and be sure to subscribe for more from USA Today Sports.